All right. What's up, guys? So I already see some people I've known for a while. Never met them in my life, but I feel like we're friends. And Jody is one of them. We got Jody here. We got AJ, Justin. What's up, guys? What's up, Carlos? All right. So do me a favor. Okay. So what you're seeing here is people are giving a shout out of their agency, and if it's not clear, please put your state. So please send it to all attendees. Here, I think it's right here. Make sure you send it to all panelists and all attendees. Jeff, do me a favor, buddy. Jeff from Iowa, resend that out to all attendees. Judy, same thing, my friend. Judy, please resend that out to all attendees. It's nice to have you here, LT. What's up, Catherine? Catherine is my sister from another mister. Absolutely. What's up, Jeffrey? Jeffrey, do me a favor, buddy. Send it out to all attendees. Christopher, same thing. Please, 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 everybody, send your agency to all attendees. I want other people to see where you guys are from. Thanks, Mark. Mark is a familiar name. I've seen Mark before. Awesome, Jeff. Is my mom here? Oh no, you're talking. Oh, Jody, you're talking about Catherine from Phoenix. Where's my mother at, though? Huh. I got to remind her. Because she hasn't been to one of these things in so long. Hold on. All right. What's up, John? John's from Metro in DC. I'm glad to have you here. All right. Mauricio, do me a favor, buddy. Resend it out to all attendees. All attendees. And Mike, I appreciate it. I appreciate that feedback. That's awesome. Hey, Kayvon, do me a favor. Do me a favor. Resend it out to all attendees because nobody can see it. Nobody can see it except me if it doesn't go to all attendees. I appreciate it. Thanks, buddy. I appreciate it. From Wichita. That's awesome. Okay. So here it is. I'm back. I'm back for another Search and Seizure Saturday. So thanks, buddy, from Baltimore, Maryland. That's great. So it's been a while. In fact, I didn't realize just how long it's been until I started looking at my template, which is, as you can kind of see up here, it's based on the date. And I'm like, wow, it's been over a month, right? I mean, I think it's been over a month. Hell, maybe longer. I don't know. But so here's the deal. I'm glad I'm back. We have some things to talk about. Looks like the text on there got messed up. Anyway, so let me introduce myself for those who do not know me. My name is Anthony Bandiero. I'm an attorney and senior legal instructor for Blue to Gold Law Enforcement Training. This is what I do for a living. I have the honor and the privilege to train police officers around the country in search and seizure. And I love it. I have a dream job, right? And things are picking back up. We have so much stuff going on. You guys, it's crazy. It's crazy. We are making up for some lost ground with COVID. We have lots of agencies asking us to come out to their agency and train. So we're booking up our 2021 calendar. We have more room. So if you're interested in our training and you want me to come to your state and teach you guys, let me know. AJ, we need more training in Northern California. So the last time we were in Northern California, we were in Lake County, which is kind of maybe a little far from you, but also we were at, I think, Wizen. But we got to get back up there to the SAC area. All right. So a little bit about me. If you want to know more about me, go to the Blue to Gold website, but let's not waste too much time on that. All right. These 3 books, I just kind of want to plug these 3 books. The Search and Seizure Survival Guide is the most popular search and seizure book in the country by far. In fact, we just had we're in the middle of a contract where one of the largest, I won't tell you who, let's let the contract go through first. One of the largest, not one of the largest, the largest law enforcement publisher in America is using that book in some of their, they're incorporating some of their other books, which they sell tens and tens of thousands of. So it's a very popular book. I highly recommend it. It moves the ball forward. Okay. Thanks, AJ. I appreciate it. It moves the ball forward to get you guys to articulate those things. The Bulletproof Report Writing book is my take to try to add some sanity to report writing. I've been updating it. I found a few mistakes in there, and I'm glad that I found them before. But you know, just I'm trying to make that book as useful as I can. But I also think they move the move the ball forward. Won't say, Justin. Won't say. All right. So disclaimers. The first disclaimer is that laws and agency SOPs may be more restrictive. Okay. So I cannot teach state distinctions on these classes, right? Now, when I do go into your state, when I go into Oregon, New Mexico, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and so forth, I absolutely adjust my content to fit what is prevailing case law in those states. But just so you know, if I talk about something and your state doesn't allow it because of some statute or case law that's based off of your state constitution, then forgive me, right? Because I can only teach you the federal standard at this class, right? Because it's a national audience. Second, if you have any doubts about your actions, talk to somebody, right? This is not an end all be all. If you have questions, that's why your agency has attorneys. That's why you have prosecutors. That's what they're there for, to give you their opinion. And their opinion is way more important than mine, right? Because that's who you work for, essentially your legal advisor. And finally, this class is legal education, not legal advice. I don't give any legal advice over this webinar. I know you hear this a lot. Attorneys say this because they want to protect their law license from challenges and so forth, and some, you know, having an attorney-client relationship when there wasn't one supposed to be there in the first place. So I'm just telling you what my opinion is on the law, and take it for what it's worth. All right. So we have a new way of getting the webinar certs. I'm hoping it's actually better, not worse, because sometimes getting those certs can be a little confusing. Now they're just under the store. Okay. So if you go to bluetogold.com, and we like this because the store link is prominent, right? I can just tell you go to the store and you're going to find it. You don't have to like search through the wilderness of our website to find the certs page. Go to the store, and then you'll see that you'll see a link there. So that's the best place we can put it. I think it's going to help you guys that are looking for your certs. While you're in the store, browse a little bit. Look at the t-shirts, okay? All right, so here's what we're going to do. We are going to answer questions today. Now, when I envisioned Search and Seizure Saturdays, it was always supposed to be in a format that answers your questions, right? I'm kind of, I kind of think of it as a podcast where you can ask questions in the chat. What's up, Anthony? You can ask questions in the chat. You can ask follow-up questions on things that I bring up. I'm also going to talk about 4 questions that I got recently this week, and I'm going to answer them in the Search and Seizure Saturday podcast, webinar. So that's what it's supposed to be like. Now, for those who are new, just so you know, I cannot hear you and I cannot see you. This is not a Zoom meeting. This is a Zoom webinar. It's one way. However, if you really do have a good question and you want to, ask it, and it's just too complicated to ask over the chat, there is the ability to turn on your mic, not your camera, only your mic, and just so you have that option. All right. These are also not supposed to be long webinars. I think we're going to be here for an hour max. These are short, sweet, to the point. Let's learn a few things, and we go on our day and enjoy our weekend. All right. There's Mama Bandiero. What's up? She has a new what's with the new name, Mom? You got Blue to Gold. You spelled Blue to Gold wrong. Media room, mail room. All right. So the first question, okay? Now this first question comes from an officer in Nebraska. See, it's like a talk show. Comes from an officer in Nebraska, and and this I didn't put the question up here. It's kind of long, so let me read what the officer wrote. I'm not going to give the name, agency, or anything like that because I want everybody to feel comfortable just asking their questions. Let me answer them. All right. So here's a scenario. All right, yeah, we got to get Rick to fix that. All right. The officer stops a vehicle for a traffic violation. A female driver is observed to be nervous and cannot provide an ID. She provides a name, but it's apparent that she is lying and is sweating and visibly nervous. So remember, that's one of the things that I teach. If you are going to associate part of the criminal activity because the person is nervous, right? You got to justify why it's more than mere nervousness. Everybody is a little nervous on a traffic stop, but abnormal or very nervous is something that you can use to justify criminal activity. So the officer is saying that the driver is sweating and so forth. That's kind of what we're looking for. All right, so good job on that. She is ultimately found to have a warrant after mobile AFIS is utilized, and she's taken to jail on that warrant. At the jail, she attempts to destroy methamphetamine in the jail cell. The officer is able to retrieve some of the meth, so some of it was lost, but some of it was recovered, and gets a positive test off the baggie. So they do a positive field test. Now, the officer then goes back to the scene of the stop because the car was not towed, okay? And gets into the unlocked vehicle. The windows are also rolled down, so I guess she decided to leave her vehicle there, right? It wasn't towed for safekeeping. And it's also parked on a road. It's parked on a roadway, not at somebody's house. Searches the vehicle and finds more drugs and paraphernalia. Now, the question is that lawful under the motor vehicle exception? So what do you guys think? What's your initial impression on that? Is that lawful under the motor vehicle exception? Yes or no? Tarvia says no, no. Jeff says absolutely. Jeff, have you been to one of my classes before? Have you been to one of my classes? All right. Okay, in April, okay. Are you online? Did I talk about the motor vehicle exception in that class? Okay. Well, Tony, you say, I want to bring up Tony. Tony, it's a good point, but here's the problem with that, right? You said in inventory search in Neville Discovery, the problem is the officers never towed it, right? They left it there on the roadside. So it's not going to be inevitable because there wasn't any process in place. And not only is she in custody, but here's the deal. AJ, what'd you say on this, by the way? Did you say yes or no on this? Let me see where your answer is. You said no. All right. Okay. All right. Let's go through it. Okay. We're going to get through the answer. Well, okay. Somebody could have come after the officers left and put drugs in the car, but let me ask you, right, Tarvis, in your training and experience, how likely is that? Right? How likely is that? How likely is that somebody just wants to put their dope in some random car? Right? So I don't know if I would say that, right. So it's possible, right? The phrase here is that it's possible, but it's not probable. It's probable that any drugs in the car is actually associated with her. Okay. So, all right, let's go through it. Keith, do me a favor, resend it out to all attendees. All right. Here, and actually I see some more. Let me see, hold on. Keith, Carlos, do me a favor. Carlos, change your settings to all attendees. Craig, all attendees. And I think we're good from there. Okay. So in order to answer this question, we got to look at the legal standard for a motor vehicle search under the Fourth Amendment and the vast majority of states, okay? The vast majority of states. Now, if you work in a state that's more restrictive, then, right? Okay. All right, Keith. All right, let's look through it. So first, here is an example. Here's an example of the book and how straight to the point it is. All right. If you have probable cause that a vehicle contains evidence or contraband, you can usually conduct a warrantless search. There are two reasons that the Supreme Court allows these searches. Number one, the ready mobility of the vehicle means evidence could leave the jurisdiction before obtaining a warrant. So ready mobility, right? Or apparent mobility. Sometimes the car is not likely to move, but it's a movable object. All right. The second one is that the vehicles have a lowered reasonable expectation of privacy because they are heavily regulated. Now, that's the logic behind a motor vehicle search or a Carroll doctrine, mobile conveyance search, whatever you want to call it. That's what that's the reasoning behind it. Now, the legal standard. Here it is. We got to answer these questions in order to know whether or not our officer in Nebraska is going to be legit. A vehicle may be searched without a warrant if, number one, you have probable cause that contraband or evidence is inside the vehicle. Do you think that just answer this question. Do you think, based off the limited facts that we got here, that the officer has PC for the vehicle, yes or no? Okay. So in other words, Jody, my friend, my fellow attorney, okay? Jody is saying, in other words, right? You believe that look, we got to, we don't have all the facts, but it seems likely that based off of her nervousness, she's in the car, she's in control, she's trying to hide drugs at the jail and so forth. It seems reasonable that if we did go to a judge to get a warrant, the judge would probably sign off on it, right, Jody? That's what you're saying. Okay. And everybody else that says yes, okay? All right. So check. That's the first requirement. Number two, yeah, maybe, right, maybe. I'm leaning towards yes. I'm leaning towards yes, right? Probable cause is not a high standard. It's pretty low in the scheme of things. It's definitely not beyond reasonable doubt, as we all know. Next, you have lawful access to the vehicle. In other words, it's not within curtilage or in a backyard. Well, he said that. He said that the car is in a public place. Right? Right. I like what Ronald, right? Ronald's doing it, right? Check. I like Ronald. Check. Okay. Number three, the vehicle appears to be readily mobile. Example, needs no more than gas, tires, or battery to become mobile. We call that the AAA rule. If AAA could get that car going, if it's broken down, it is searchable under the motor vehicle exception. Now, did you see what was not listed there? It did not say somebody has to be inside the vehicle. It has to be occupied. You don't see that so far. We are talking about, AJ, okay? And then fourth, your search does not exceed the scope of the probable cause. Well, that's probably gonna be pretty easy here because the probable cause is for drugs. Drugs is traditionally a pretty broad search. Now, Ronald says maybe more than one key if she took it with her. Anybody can remove the key at the time. Now, Ronald, you are arguing exigency. If we have any evidence that somebody else has a key to the car, we're arguing some form of exigency. But, okay, Ronald, you've been a long time listener of mine. Do you need real exigency to search a car under the motor vehicle exception? Yes or no? Or anybody else want to answer that, right? Do you need exigency under the motor vehicle exception? Yes or no? Right. Not true exigency. And somebody said to me, Anthony, what do you mean by true exigency? There's fake exigency? And the answer is yes. There is fake exigency. Do you know what that fake exigency is? Ready mobility, right? Let's be honest, okay? How many times have you arrested somebody from a vehicle, they're in the back of your police car, or they're on the way to jail, okay? You have the keys in hand. Nobody else is around. You have 3, 4 cops on scene. Nobody's going to take over the stop and steal the car from you, right? And then you search the car. Is there any real exigency there? Absolutely not. The car's not going anywhere, okay? Nobody's busting out the car with, bringing a gang full of, a van full of gang members and going to bust the car out in most circumstances. But that's what I'm trying to tell you. There's really no exigency, but the courts will articulate that the ready mobility of the vehicle there's some inherent exigency there. It's a complete farce. But that is kind of what they're doing. But don't forget, it's not just the ready mobility. It's also the reduced expectation of privacy. All right. So there it is. Okay. Let me read you some quotes, but there it is. Okay. Justin says, does it matter if the officer left the scene and came back? No, it does not. It does not. I have a case out there. I have a case where the officer towed a car. It's in the impound lot for 38 days. On day 38, somebody calls the cop, a CI, and says, hey, you missed stuff in that car, just so you know. I did? Yeah. You left, there was something stuffed in that driver's seat. Gotcha. Now, this is a CI. It's a reliable CI and so forth. So don't worry about the probable cause part of it. The cop could have gotten a warrant for the car. You're with me? The officer then goes to the car, searches the car without a warrant in the impound lot. The guy, owner of the car, is still in jail. Recovers a lot of drugs. The court said, quote, it is irrelevant that the car was in the impound lot 38 days later. Irrelevant. That is absolutely true under the motor vehicle exception. Now, just so you know, okay, I see a lot of my students on here saying, go get a warrant. Don't think I disagree with you one bit. Are we on the same page? I'm cool with getting a warrant. But when you ask me a question, I'm going to give you an answer. The answer is, if the officer had probable cause that there was contraband, evidence, fruit, or instrumentalities of something in the car, the officer could recover it under the motor vehicle exception if those 4 things are present. So Justin, there's your answer on that one. Ronald, once you recovered the drugs, there may have been actual concern unsecured vehicle, may have been moved, or actually, you're right. There could be some exigency there, right, Ronald? I like it, actually. I didn't think about it before like that, but you're right. She can make a phone call, right? And say, hey, the drugs in my car, go and grab them. Okay. Let's talk about the U.S. Supreme Court, okay? We hold that the scope of the warrantless search authorized by the mobile conveyance exception is no broader and no narrower, okay? I love it. I love the group, right? And no narrower than a magistrate could legitimately authorize by warrant. You guys have to remember this in your brain. That is why factor number 4 for me is you conduct the search in the same manner as if you had a warrant, because the motor vehicle exception is a search as if you had a warrant. Okay, let's continue. If probable cause justifies the search of a lawfully stopped vehicle, it justifies the search of every part of the vehicle and its contents that may conceal the object of the search. I think I have one more quote in here. Okay. Here is another state case, okay? For the purposes of the motor vehicle exception to the search warrant requirement, a car is considered, quote, readily mobile if it is operable, even though it may be parked and unoccupied at the time of the search. There you go. Takeaway. With proper articulation, the search is likely lawful. So here's the point. The key question in that case for me, okay? No, I don't think Lundquist is a California state, but I can tell you with confidence, right? I can tell you with confidence that California is 100% on board with this standard. California does not deviate from the federal standard because of a constitutional amendment back in the early 80s. California is the best place for search and seizure. It is the worst place for statutory laws, regulations, and hug-a-thug type programs. But it is number one as far as its interpretation of the Constitution. Because of that, there's a lot of things going on. I don't know, quite frankly, it's actually, sometimes it's just, sometimes it freaks me out. Like I read some of these cases from California, like, wow, California's, sometimes they're not upheld, but for the most part they are. Okay. So the key question with that case, and it's Nebraska. Nebraska is a Fourth Amendment state. They do not deviate from the Fourth Amendment. So the answer to the question for the officer is, if the officer had probable cause, which I think he does, that search will be upheld under the motor vehicle exception. Okay, there it is. Question number one. Question number two. Can you use, this is from another officer. This officer, I forget the state, but I'll bring it up. Let me see, actually, hold on. This officer is from Alabama. Okay, so can you use a fingerprint scanner during an investigative detention? What's the answer? Yes or no? Good. Good. This is going to be quick then. This is going to be quick. Okay. But let me talk to you about let me give you some of the guidance on it though too. Okay. All right. Kathleen, please. Kathleen, Joey, do me a favor. Reset your chat settings to all attendees. I want people to see what you're adding to the conversation, please. All right. So here is from the book, right? You go to the good book. I like to call it the Bible of search and seizure. Can I get an amen? Let's read some scripture here on page 55. Some of you out there will be like, Anthony, you're going a little too far in your jokes. Don't mess with scripture. I'll put it down. I'll put it down. I don't want to get any of you mad, but I mean, on page 55 in the good book, I talk about this. So investigative techniques during a stop, right? You may conduct investigative techniques in the field when the suspect is lawfully detained, still lawfully detained, and the technique employed is minimally intrusive, right? We can't go overboard with some of the things that we do. But look what I said here. You may capture a suspect's fingerprints in the field when you have reason to believe fingerprints may have been left at the scene, or they could prove useful later. That's, minimally intrusive means were used to recover the suspect's fingerprints, and the fingerprints will aid your investigation. So here's some of the key. Let's look at some cases, okay? First, here's the Supreme Court has not directly addressed this issue. Instead, they have done it in what's called dicta. Dicta is a phrase that means, or a word that means, they spoke about it indirectly in a case, but that reasoning was not needed to resolve the case before it. So dicta is not legally binding on other courts, but it's persuasive because it kind of brings up some what ifs. Okay, basically that's what dicta is. Okay, right, Jody? Right, Jody? A dicta is a what if. That's kind of a good analogy of it. All right. So here's what the Supreme Court said in Maryland versus King, and I have another quote. The court, they're talking about capital C. Capital C is Supreme Court usually. Okay, they're talking about themselves. Okay, the court does not actually say whether it believes that taking a person's fingerprints in the fingerprints is a Fourth Amendment search, and our cases provide no ready answer to that question. So that's one thing that they said in Maryland versus King, which is having to do with actually DNA tests. So fingerprinting has nothing to do with DNA, but the Maryland is saying that we can take DNA from people for felonies, or I should say serious crimes. The rules for serious crimes, it can be less than a felony and it's equivalent to like taking the person's fingerprints. The court did not go that far. Okay, they're not saying, well, look, we don't know if you can take DNA from somebody who was arrested for jaywalking, right? Because or I'm sorry, did I say fingerprint? Yeah, I say DNA, right? We don't know. That's not before us right now. King was, this was a gun charge and so forth. But it may not be a search, okay? So the logic here is that taking the fingerprints is not a search because a person is exposing their fingerprints to the world, right? I mean, I don't know how well that is really, how persuasive that is, because when you look at fingerprints, they're not distinctive to the naked eye, right? So courts have said that fingerprints are like a voice exemplar. So your voice is very distinct. It's similar to your face. So cops taking pictures of people's faces during investigative detentions infringes on no constitutional right of privacy. I completely agree with that. Pictures, you can compel somebody, the prosecutor can compel somebody to say written lines from a page that mimic what the robber said and so forth, or the bank teller, or said it to the bank teller, right? A bank robber. But I'm not sure, right? I'm not sure that fingerprints are exposed to the world the same way as your face is. So, but that's kind of where we're at right now. Right now, the case law on this issue is that taking the fingerprints is not a search. Instead, what the focus is on the seizure. How intrusive were you with the actual taking the fingerprints, and how long did it take, and so forth. Let's see what Ronald says. Hasn't there been cases compelling unlocking phones or computers with fingerprints versus memorized pins or codes? Yes. Seems like body characteristics like fingerprints were not the same as memorized pins, which is true, which would compel possible self-incrimination or privacy issues. No, you're absolutely correct. So, but that is, remember though, the fingerprint or even a retina scan, right? Even like a retina scan is, you can compel it because it's a physical evidence, right? But that doesn't answer the question whether it's a non-search. In other words, you might need judicial process. You might need to go through the judge, right? Jody says no REP on fingerprints. And Jody is absolutely correct as far as the where the law is right now. But can I make one distinction though? I think it's different. Leaving your fingerprints on windows and so forth. First of all, that's like abandoned property. It's the same thing as smoking a cigarette and throwing it in the trash. There's no issue there. Zero, none. But I'm just saying, when you're stopped and you're putting your fingers like this, right? I don't know. It's the argument can go a little further than that. That's right. No, you're right. That's true. But here's the deal. So fingerprint searches is not going to be your issue. Ronald, Jody, we're on the same page. As far as the case law completely supports that the fingerprints themselves. It's the detention. So it's the seizure. Yep. That's right. If the detention solved. So here's an example, right? Here's another Supreme Court decision. There is thus support in our cases for the view that the Fourth Amendment would permit seizures for the purpose of fingerprinting if there is reasonable suspicion that the suspect has committed a criminal act, if there's a reasonable basis for believing that fingerprinting will establish or negate the suspect's connection with that crime. That language is similar to Terry versus Ohio, confirm or dispel your suspicion, and the procedure is carried out with dispatch. That's what we turn to next. The key in these cases is how long did the fingerprint seizure take, not the search, because it's probably not a search under the Fourth Amendment. There's no REP as it stands in 2020. Instead, the issue is was the seizure carried out? Let's look at those, an example here, okay? So one more Supreme Court case for you. Sorry, I just put this together today. Detentions, okay? Detentions, seizures, for the sole purpose of obtaining fingerprints could, under narrowly defined circumstances, be found to comply with the Fourth Amendment, even though there is no probable cause in the traditional sense. So there you go. We have 3 U.S. Supreme Court cases who have talked about this idea of taking fingerprints during detentions, and each one has very strongly implied that we are good to go. Now let's talk about inaction. Okay. So here is a case out of Grand Rapids, Michigan. Okay. And it's a very recent case. I think it's 2019 or something. So an agency gave the Grand Rapids PD gave their officers authority. They call it P&P, to photograph and print suspects in the field if they thought it was useful for their investigation. Now, 2 suspects were photographed and printed when they did nothing. Well, it turns out they did nothing wrong, right? The first case was the cop thought he saw a hand-to-hand transaction involving a 15-year-old kid. It was actually just him returning property to the neighbor. There was no hand-to-hand transaction. And the other one had to do with some kind of a robbery suspect. Well, a lawyer gets a hold of this and he says, hey, your practice here of just printing and photographing people in the field is unconstitutional. It violates my client's reasonable expectation of privacy. And you're going to say, no, it doesn't. This court has also stated that, quote, the taking of fingerprints is not violative of the prohibition against unreasonable searches and seizures, in part because there is no reasonable expectation of privacy in one's fingerprints. I think Jody wrote this case, okay? And Ronald, they got together and wrote this case. There you go, okay? So, no issue. Let's talk about one other case. Here's a different case. Police transported a robbery suspect to the police station for fingerprinting. The process took about 2 hours. Do we have a problem? Houston, do we have a problem? Right? There is no problem. Remember, look, Jody's saying, like, she's talking like a lawyer. Come on, Jody, this is gonna be problematic. It does depend. Okay, Mark, he did not consent to being transported. 2 hours. Remember, the U.S. Supreme Court said you can take fingerprints if it's done with what? Dispatch. The answer is no, Anthony. It's not reasonable. Here's what the court said. The detention encompassing approximately 2 hours while the officer went to lunch until the time the fingerprints were matched was not accomplished with, quote, dispatch. So there you go. Hopefully you learned something new today. The idea of taking fingerprints in the field, if it's related to your investigation, is going to be legit, especially, right? Especially with the computers, right? I mean, you're not rolling, it's just going to be very easy, right? Well, what if unforeseen circumstances cause delay? Well, we do know that first of all, Jody, the problem here, I think the other fatal flaw here is kind of what Mark is bringing up too. The red flag, the problem here is they transported him. The general rule, right, is that 99% of the time, when you put somebody in a police car and you drive them somewhere else against their will, that is an arrest. That's right, it's a de facto arrest, 99% of the time. So the main way for police to overcome that presumption of a de facto arrest is to have some form of exigency, which they don't have here. So that's why, you're going to see the takeaway here is this. The takeaway is that quick in the field prints will likely be upheld, right? But do not transport the suspect without exigency. You're going to need some exigency in order to pull off that trick. Otherwise, the court will say, that's an arrest, a de facto arrest. Do you have probable cause? If the officer does not have probable cause, then the evidence will be suppressed, most likely, under the Constitution. There is an argument. It's a minority view that fingerprints evidence will not be suppressed because it IDs the person. And generally speaking, we do not suppress identifying characteristics of a person. But that's a minority view. The majority of courts will suppress it as hard evidence. The officer went to the lunch and be read as a red flag. Should have offered the suspect a burger too. You could justify time as a consensual lunch break. Absolutely. In fact, I make a joke. When I was working full time and I want to talk to somebody in jail, now this is before they got their Sixth Amendment right to counsel, or I want to talk to them about something completely unrelated, no nexus to the crime charged. All I had to do, and it worked every single time, is I would go to the jail, say, hey, I'd like to speak to you, blah, blah, blah. Get the perfunctory stuff out of the way. But before I do that, I got to go get lunch. You want some McDonald's? And I would buy them like 2 99-cent burgers from McDonald's and talk about, man, I mean, it's hard to resist that food. I don't know. Maybe that's coerciveness. Maybe it's not. I was just being nice, but they did want to talk to me. I don't know, for some reason. All right. Right. The cigarettes work too. Okay. So here's the third question. Okay. If you seize a phone and you are getting a warrant, but these suspect may try to remote wipe it, can you search it under inevitable discovery? Now, the way that this question was posed to me from, let's see where this officer is. This officer is in, looks like Nevada. So, but the problem is that what they're looking at is the fact that the person is in custody, he's making jailhouse calls, and he has the ability to call somebody that can remote wipe the phone. Can we just search it without the warrant under inevitable discovery? What is your answer? Yes or no? Jeff already answered. He said no, but you can place it in airplane mode. Judy says no. Mark says no. Mark, do me a favor, reset your settings to all attendees. Yeah, Faraday bag is also, by the way, AJ, Faraday bag is better than turning that phone off, right, my friend? Is that the preferred method? Yep, absolutely. If you do not have a Faraday bag, you can get tinfoil and stuff like that, but you can go, your agency, or you can just buy a high quality Faraday bag off of eBay. I'm telling you, if you want to avoid, now look, the problems come in, by the way, when cops are turning off phones and they see evidence in plain view. And what do? They put that evidence in the warrant. That's when they really cause themselves a big headache. If you just leave it out, just turn off the phone and leave it out, you shouldn't have that much of an issue. But just to let you know, but I say don't go down that route. Drop it in a Faraday bag and get your warrant. Okay, the answer is no. Here's why. So in the book, again, right, here's how the book is used. Inevitable or independent discovery. So the exclusionary rule forbids the admission of illegally obtained evidence. However, if the prosecution can show that the evidence would have been discovered irrespective of the illegal conduct, the evidence will not be suppressed usually. So here's inevitable discovery. The inevitable discovery doctrine may save evidence from the exclusionary rule if there was a standard procedure, vehicle inventory, or, I mean, not really the warrant, but a standard procedure that would have inevitably discovered the same evidence. The problem here is that it's not necessarily inevitable discovery just because you're getting a warrant. The problem is that a judge still has to sign off on it. And what if the judge doesn't? So there's that question. But this is not really the way that the officer is talking about using inevitable discovery is not actually accurate. Inevitable discovery, again, is when something outside of your control would have found the evidence. Well, getting the warrant is in your control. So I guess if the answer was yes, then it goes like this. Hey, do we have enough to get a warrant? Yeah, we got enough to go get a warrant. Well, just search it then. We don't need a warrant because it's inevitable discovery. That would be the logic of that type of exception. But that's not how it works. Instead, right, you would need legitimate exigency. So inevitable discovery is not the answer. Legitimate exigency would be. Here's another example, right? Warrantless entry. Now, this is a warrantless entry into a home, but for destruction of evidence, but the logic is the same, right? So if you have facts and circumstances, specific, right? Not just a what if. Cops are the best at what ifs. We can always do a what if to rationalize our behavior. But that's not going to work. You're going to need something specific about this person, this case, here, now, today, not yesterday, not 10 years in the future, okay? What about this person here and now will cause you some, some exigency? But again, why wouldn't you just turn it off? I mean, even if you had exigency, right? Exigency to do what? To prevent the remote wiping. Even if you don't have a Faraday bag and it has access to a signal and you can get into it, why wouldn't the appropriate procedure still be to turn it off versus searching it? Now, I will tell you, some real exigency could be like a kidnap or an active shooter, right? If you take down an active shooter and they have their phone on them, I can see some exigency of just going through the phone and looking through text messages and so forth or calls to see if they're involved and they're coordinating with somebody else, right? I get that, but not in this case. So the takeaway is you would need exigency to search the phone before getting the warrant. That inevitable discovery will not work. And by the way, this goes against what they were told by a lawyer. So unless I'm missing something, I don't know why a prosecutor told them that, because since you're getting a warrant anyway, it would be inevitable discovery. I'm not sure why that prosecutor would say that. I would need some more. I'm missing something if that would be true. Okay, finally, okay, our last question for today. Are you guys having a good time? I hope this format is working for you. I hope I'm not wasting your time. Okay, good. All right. I hope I'm not wasting your time. All right. Our last email comes from Colorado. Okay. Colorado. The official time in Colorado is always 4:20. Okay. So under Jones, you cannot trespass onto a car during a canine sniff. Does that prohibit shutting the door? Okay. Does that prohibit shutting the door? So let's first of all explain to you or remind you, right? Either teach you for the first time or remind you what Jones is. Jones is that U.S. Supreme Court case that 2012 that basically said that when officers, this involved a GPS case. That's why I got Hank on here putting the GPS on the vehicle. Officers put a GPS tracker on a car in DC area. We got a DC cop here, right? And without a warrant, they tracked it for 27 days. Jones claims that violates his reasonable expectation of privacy. It certainly does. It also was held to violate the Constitution because the Supreme Court said that when police touch or enter a protected area, touch a protected area here, the car is certainly protected under the Fourth Amendment, and they have the intent at the time of touching to gather information, that is a search under the Fourth Amendment. So there's two searches under the Fourth Amendment. There is a reasonable expectation of privacy. We've been kind of talking about that. Fingerprints are a good example of that, right? There's no expectation of privacy on your fingerprints. Actually, I'm just thinking about Jody. I'm just also thinking about now, okay, even if you don't have expectation of privacy on your fingerprints, when cops take your fingers and press it onto the reader of the, right, push on the reader to read your fingerprint, that's a touching with the intent to get information. What about that argument? Jody, whoa. I'm wondering if that thing has legs now. Let me know what you think. I'm wondering if we just skip the whole REP issue and just go straight to a trespass of your body. Oh, snap. I don't know. Probably not. Probably. Anyway, you're saying not? I want you to tell me why that's not. Why that would still not be a trespass with the intent to get information. Why not a Jones search? I need you to help me think through this one, because right now I'm not seeing the out on that. I mean, I'm thinking like, okay, pat downs, right? Pat down is also a trespass on your body, but the court said that is a search, but it's lawful under the Fourth Amendment. Here, we're not even we're saying it's no search, but we are still trespassing. Jeff says minimal intrusion. Okay. Oh, I like that. Okay, Lewis is also backing me up on that. What do you think, Jody? But see, I don't know. Jody, I don't know if that gets us to the finish line because it's not about the level of invasiveness with Jones searches. I mean, look at the case out of Texas. Poking on the tire was a search. Think about the case out of Saginaw, Michigan. Chalking a piece of a chalk on the tire was a search. We're going to see that. Yeah, okay, let's watch this video. Okay, so he shut the door. Okay. Okay. It's always the girlfriend. So he shut the door. Was that a search under the Fourth Amendment under Jones? Yes or no? My mother says yes. Jody says yes. Yeah, AJ says no on shutting the door. Robert says no. But we have a lot of smart people, including my friend Jody, who says that is a search. Jody, my fellow lawyer, why do you think that's a search under Jones? Tony says for officer safety. No, Jody, I'm talking about, no, we're going to separate those two issues. Jody, I'm simply asking on just closing the door before he ran the dog, before the dog alerted, before he said the word up. Is that a search under the Fourth Amendment? And Tim says he has no intent to gather information. Do you agree with that Jody? So Ronald says, did he close the door to facilitate the dog sniff or to prevent access or lunge for weapons by suspect after shady response? Is there anything in the vehicle? So look, I think the answer is both. I think just like what Jeff says. And now, okay, Jody, no search. I agree. Okay, it is not a search to close the door because there is no intent at the time of the touching to gather any information. Does that make sense? Shutting the door will facilitate a safe deployment of the dog. But it gives you no information. It gives you information. Now, if he rolled down the window, if he shut the door and rolled down, if he rolled down the window and then shut the door, and you ask him, well, why did you do that? And he says, well, to get this for the air to come outside the vehicle, that would be a search. That would be a search. That's right. Actually, Ronald, and I'm not a canine handler either, but that's my logic too. In fact, if he wanted to help the dog search, he would have left the door open, right? Okay. So, oh, by the way, let me make a quick point, okay? This is going to go up on YouTube. And if you are watching this on YouTube, you are going to realize that there is no video played. And the reason is because YouTube will give me a copyright strike on playing a video owned by somebody else, and they do not care one lick about fair use and commentary. They do not care. So I'm going to, when I edit this video, I'm going to take that video out, but I will put a link in the description below where you can see that same video on YouTube. All the videos I use are accessible through public links. All right. So the answer is no. All right. Next, okay. When the officer instructed the dog up, did you guys hear? I'm going to play it real quick, just so we're on the same page.
Let's go find out. Let's go find out. Let's go find out.
Listen for it.
We check up. Good. Come on, check. Good boy. Suspicious.
Is that a search? Is that a search under the Fourth Amendment? Yeah, up is the issue. We are going to battle this in court, but it's hard to get away from Jones. Jones is very, very strict on that touching issue with the intent to get information. The dog is an instrument of police. But so when he directed his dog, when he had the intent for his dog to climb onto that car to gather information, which is a sniff, that is a search under the Fourth Amendment. Well, the probable cause has to come first. That's right. Ronald says direction and instinct. If the dog did it on its own, that is called instinctual reaction. That is not a search under the Fourth Amendment. If you want more info on those distinctions, please attend my traffic stops and canines. So here's the takeaway. Shutting the door is not done with the intent to gather information, and therefore there's no Jones issue. There it is. Okay. So Ronald, the answer is yes, but okay, so the answer is, I'm sorry, actually, so let me repeat the question because again, my YouTubers are not going to know what the question is because they can't see the chat. Okay, the question was, could the dog, if the door was left open, could the dog climb into the car on its own instinction? And the answer is yes, but here's the problem though, that I just want to be cautious of, right? The thing is, it's one thing for the dog to instinctually jump onto a truck bed, to instinctually jump inside of a car. But if the officer, the handler, is not prepared to argue that once the dog goes in the car, he had probable cause, and the motor vehicle exception doesn't apply, leaving the dog in the car, leaving the dog on the truck bed would transform it into a government search because you are essentially acquiescing into the dog staying there, right? So the initial jumping and so forth, no search. It's instinctual. Leaving the dog in there to go hog wild until it finds probable cause would be a search. But the good thing is that in my experience, most of the time that the dogs are jumping into the car, that is a change of behavior. And many officers, many handlers are able to articulate that change in behavior is a probable cause, right? And if you have probable cause, you can touch cars all day long. So I hope that answers your question as clearly as I can, because it can be kind of complicated in my opinion. That's correct. That's correct, Ronald. If the dog does something that the dog is not allowed to do, just say, hey, Fido, come back out, right? Or pull him out with the leash and so forth. But again, Ronald, in my experience, most of the time those dogs are in there, it's pretty quick that they had probable cause. So but that is up to the handler to tell me. That's not my decision. That handler would have to testify on the stand. Yeah, exactly. Me either. But if the handler testifies on the stand that in his training experience and so forth, that is probable cause, we're good, because dogs can touch cars all day long with probable cause. It's getting to the probable cause first. Okay. All right. So, okay. I hope I'm clear on that. If you are watching this and you want more clarification on the dog, then let me know. Okay, I want to address AJ's question. Right, exactly. I like passive alert dogs too. By the way, Jeff, for my YouTubers, Jeff said that their dogs will sit a passive alert. The law likes passive alert dogs because of the Jones issue. The jury likes aggressive alert dogs, like scratching and so forth, but the law doesn't like it because of Jones and also tort claims. Okay. All right. So AJ brings up a case that came out of California recently. It's People versus Johnson. And it is basically had to do with marijuana, right? What constitutes a sealed container in regards to marijuana? These are very specific to statutes. So you have to, but it's an interesting case. So I'm going to talk about it, right? Until in this case, there has been no legal definition of sealed. Now the court has stated that sealed simply means a barrier to access. How would you argue a lack of barrier? Is there even an argument now if we come across a baggie that can be easily opened? Okay, first of all, okay, that didn't go to everybody, so hopefully I can talk about it right now if you want. So I might as well, right? I already repeated the question. Okay, thanks, AJ. Okay, so here's the deal. First of all, I did find that case was not, in my opinion, the most well-written case out there. It is kind of confusing, and just to kind of get through the weeds, and so, but here's the deal, okay? So marijuana is treated like an open container in many states, just like California. So open container laws are analogous for liquor and marijuana. The takeaway of that case is this: if you have no evidence, this is my opinion, by the way, AJ, and I hope that I'm moving the ball forward, but this is how I look at that case. If you have no evidence, none, that the item has not been unsealed, baggie, mason jar, Tupperware container, if you have no evidence that that container has been unsealed after it was put into the vehicle, it is not open container violation. So you have no right to search the car based off of that violation, right? You would need something else, too much weed, right? Or in Colorado, not enough marijuana. So you're gonna need something more. So how do you prove that, right? They admit to you that they smoked before in the car or something like that. The odor of burnt marijuana. Maybe some shake, maybe some shake nearby shows that some of it spilled. I'm just gonna need something more. Okay, Justin says, I thought I read it somewhere that even if it is in a baggie with a knot on it, it's considered sealed. Yes, it is. The key with the open container, again, this is my viewpoint, okay? Oh, even if it wasn't knotted. I don't know the answer to that. And if somebody else has a feedback on that, but I think the court in California, okay, I think the court in California comes to the same conclusion, doesn't it? If I'm going to have some, if I'm going to try to guess here, you know, and infer what they're going to say, they're going to still say that, look, a lot of people, I don't know. It's maybe that's silly that they would do that, but I still think you're going to have to give them something more than just weed in a baggie in a car after that case. Because the baggie is, I don't know, but then you're saying that if there's no, right, the baggie has no Ziploc. You're just saying like a baggie with no Ziploc. What do we do with those? Is that what you're? Because to me, just right. All I can say is this. If it has a Ziploc, then that has the barrier, right? I don't know what constitutes a barrier, but here is my feelings on it. Do you care about my feelings, AJ? My feeling is this. I still think the court is going to look and want you to articulate, even if it's in a very common sandwich baggie with no positive barrier, like a Ziploc, like a Tupperware container. I think they're going to still want more from you than just anytime somebody decides to buy the cheap baggies, their car gets searched. And when people spring for the extra 1 cent per bag baggie, their car doesn't get searched. I think with the anti-marijuana enforcement prerogative by the courts, they're still going to push back on cops and say, hey, look, baggies that just roll up are still a very common way to transport marijuana. That in itself is not illegal. What else do you have that this person opened the container while driving and after he left the house? I wish I had a better answer for you, but that's my feeling on it. I would still be careful in California. What about a year ago? I confiscated a container from a bag with the seal broken. Never got feedback about what happened with that case. But, well, after Johnson, though, you're going to need to be way more on your A game about why do you believe the container was opened while driving, right? Isn't that the essence of that case? Is how are you going to argue that the container was opened while driving? Otherwise, it's not an open container. Yeah. And, and access. So you have to tell me that. I can't give you that answer, but that case has left a lot of questions. But get used to it. You know what? Get used to it, because all the court is doing is warming you up for the end game. The end game is this. Marijuana is not going to be any issue in several years from now. Who knows, right? Right? I mean, that's the end game. Marijuana is not going to be, I don't care if it's opened, it's just all going to be about DUI, right? For the most part. I mean, I talk like that and say, well, Anthony, you really mean no open container laws when it comes to marijuana? Essentially, that's kind of my feeling about it. It's going to be treated the same as tobacco, right? It's going to be treated like the same as tobacco. And I may be wrong, but that seems to be the push. We have lost the war on drugs, guys. I'm sorry to break the news. Mom, cover your ears. I promise not to smoke the devil's lettuce, but it's true. Yep. So DUI, I think, is the main focus. That's what I'd be focusing on, is the DUI issues, or I don't know. I'm rambling on. I should probably just cut it off because it's so confusing. All right, guys. So I'm going to leave. Enjoy your weekend. The only question, right, is if you enjoy these free webinars, will you help spread the word? I know you guys will, right? Help me introduce myself to other cops and so forth. And there you go. Hopefully it was worth your time. If you're interested in more of these trainings and the de-escalation stuff that we're doing, intervention, advanced search and seizure report writing. Thanks, Manuel. Thanks, Jody. I think we talked about some pretty interesting stuff that's maybe not as quite settled as we would hope that it would be. You're welcome, Jeff. And just so you know, we put our schedule up for the next year, and we're already starting our schedule for 2021. Thanks, Victoria. All right. Yep. All right, guys. Thank you so much. My friend AJ, Ronald, Jody, Catherine. Always got a lot of Mark, right? Mark has been around for a long time. It's always great to see my frequent flyers. I think I said Ronald and so forth, and Justin. You guys are great. Thank you so much. And all those others, if you're new to what I'm trying to do here, don't forget too that on Wednesdays, I'm also doing a free webinar. Just real quick, on this Wednesday, hold on. No, hold on. What is Wednesday? I don't see it. Oh, it looks like it's on Friday. I'll be doing it next Friday at 1 p.m. Pacific. Cool. Thanks, guys. Stay safe.